you need to get really comfortable being uncomfortable. And when I say get comfortable being uncomfortable, that's not to say that you'll ever feel complete ease when discomfort arises, but just get familiar with it. Understand what feelings come up in your body when discomfort arises. Is it fear? Is it anxiety? Are you panicking? Get really acquainted with how you react and respond to things first and foremost. You need to be clear on who you are and how you feel, how you show up.
Welcome to Carrie On, the show where we explore reinvention, self-discovery, and empowerment before, during, and after midlife. I'm your host, Carrie Murray. It's time to keep our head above the chaos and carry on. Hello, and welcome to a very, very special episode of Carrie On, because I'm joined with one of my favorite people on the planet, Crystal Whitaker. She is the founder and creator of Crystal Lily Creative, and she is also the author of Brave Leadership is a Choice, which we're going to dive into. But I first want to say thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Crystal was also our Empowerment Leader honoree in 2024. 2024. I've met some of the most wonderful individuals, guests on this show through Crystal. I think we met through Paige. Yeah. And was that at a Tuesdays Together? Do you remember them? Or was it a bra event?
I think it was a bra event. I think that she had initially connected us maybe via email or social, and you were kind and gracious enough to invite me to a bra event as your guest.
Gotcha. So we met through Paige Ray, a brand photographer and videographer, and a huge, also a woman empowerment leader, and a huge contributor to our community. She's incredible.
She is. Love Paige.
Love her. Crystal is also does fantastic workshops on inclusion. She works with coaches. She works with creatives, entrepreneurs. She's done workshops for the bra community. She's actually helped me with my inclusive language on my website. You actually should look at my new website. So I need to follow up with that now that I'm saying it out loud. So you've been a big contributor to our community. So I want to say thank you for taking the time to come here today and talk about some things that people get all icky about and yucky about. But before we do, I want to dive into what brought you to this work. You know, where did 5-year-old Crystal find the gumption that to one day be an author, creator, leader? You know, how was growing up? I know we talked about we kind of joked actually about how you could create a masterclass in, survival skills, but tell me about the beginning.
A 5-year-old me wanted to be a teacher. Which,
well, you are.
Funny enough, right?
Yeah.
Not in the way that I thought I would be. And I know you've told me that often, that I'm a teacher. But I thought that I would teach elementary school. I had really great teachers in elementary school. I believe it was my kindergarten teacher, Miss Solomon. Weird that I remember that name.
No, teachers make impact.
They really do. Yeah, but I'm the oldest of 2 siblings, and I was raised to be very independent. And with that independence came resilience, resourcefulness. I'm very adaptable because of the way that I grew up as well. We moved around a lot, and I'm really observant, which I think is probably what makes me
curious.
I'm so curious.
Yeah.
And that's even something that my mom, I could remember being a kid and a teenager. I would ask a lot of questions. Why? And I always had a case for something. There was a period of time that my mom thought, you should be a lawyer. I'm glad I didn't do that. But
Yeah. Although we could use some great legal help. But I want to talk about, you also mentioned growing up, you felt like you weren't black enough and you weren't white enough. But you kind of like were able to kind of transition and go through different friend groups and circles and everything. Do you think that is kind of where your resiliency came from? Where your bravery came from?
Probably. I mean, I think there's a level of adaptability that comes with moving around, moving schools, being introduced into new environments. The earlier part of my childhood, I went to a predominantly white school, and being the only person of color in my family growing up, that also brought its own levels of confusion and curiosity and misunderstanding for myself as a child, not really understanding why. And then when I was in 5th grade, we moved to a different part of the state. I grew up in Florida. And when we moved to a different area, the school that I went to was predominantly Black. And it was the first time that I had ever seen so many kids that looked like me. And I remember being really excited about it. And not understanding, not knowing all of the things that I had internalized being around predominantly white communities, populations, certain things that I had internalized, biases, and that coming out, but not realizing it. So then, of course, in hindsight, I recognize why a lot of the Black kids that I went to school with, that I had, transferred to, ended up picking on me a lot. I was very much an outcast. I did not fit in, so to speak. And then the white kids, they were, how you and I, we've talked about the difference between being nice and being inclusive.
Yeah.
My first experiences of that would have been in middle school when I transferred to this school, because the white kids, they were nice to me, but I was also often invited to places, sleepovers, birthday parties and things like that, because I was easy to pick on. Wow. I was the one who got, honey put in my hair at sleepovers and my bras and underwear frozen. So.
Wow. And then how did that, so that's bullying.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yeah. So, and there, you mentioned, the difference between being nice and being inclusive. When was the first time you felt included? Was it still in middle school? Was it after high school? Where you felt they're not just being nice, they're including me?
It would have been, so when I was in 8th grade, still in middle school, towards the end of it, I moved back to Central Florida with my mom because my Nana raised me for a good chunk of my childhood. And when I decided that I wanted to live with my mom again, I went to a school in the city that I was born, and I was sitting in a gym class. I remember it clear as day. There was this very petite girl sitting in front of me. I'm petite. This girl was smaller than me. And I remember staring at the back of her head. We're sitting in the gym, and she had this beautiful, long, flowing hair. And then she just kind of whipped around, and she looked at me. And she was like, "Hi, you're new here." I'm like, yeah, I'm new here. She's like, "I'm Rachel. We should be friends." And we were friends. And she was just... loving towards me from the start. We're still kind of in touch now. Our lives have gone in very different directions, but she introduced me to other people. And it was also a school where there were a lot more diverse backgrounds. So I saw a lot more mixed kids. I saw a lot more Spanish kids. The classrooms were a lot more mixed. And I felt so much more comfortable because there was that ability to kind of ebb and flow. Everybody just kind of got along. I mean, kids are kids. There's still stuff. But it was the first time that I saw that level of diversity.
Did you see it among the adults, too?
To a degree, yeah. The teachers,
yeah.
More diverse teachers for sure.
And then, okay, wow. Then as you grew older, you're off to college. You decided, I'm now in my professional era. How was that transition outside of college? Did you stay in Florida? I forget.
When I finished college? Yeah, so I worked full-time through college, and when I finished college, I was still living in Orlando, where the area that I was mostly grew up in, and I moved to Miami shortly after I finished college, and I was in Miami for about a year and a half. Didn't love it. My experience with Miami is it's a great place to visit, but I didn't feel great there. And I moved out to LA. I sold everything that would not fit in my car and
How old were you?
25.
Oh, wow. That's when I moved to LA at 25
Really?
also. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Something about that mid-20s.
Yeah.
You're just
quarter life crisis? I don't know.
I called it that.
Oh, see? Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I don't want to be here.
Right. Where's the farthest I can go?
But actually, that was also one of my thoughts.
Yeah.
Truly. And so, yeah, I'd always had this distant love affair with California. I had visited a few times and just thought, I'm going to go to LA. I'm going to do it. I'll figure it out. I did not have a lot of money. I think I had maybe $5,000 in whatever belongings fit in my car and my little dog at the time, Lily.
I never knew that's where Lily came from.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah, dog gets a legacy and a business.
and contributed zero, maybe just emotional support.
So much emotional support.
Yeah.
But I came out here, and my mom always jokes that I'm like a cat. I land on my feet because I was very determined. And
that was actually my next question. What skills do you think were ingrained in you to take that leap? That very brave leap.
Yeah, it's funny. Determined wasn't originally a thought that I had to that, but yeah, very determined, independent, resourceful. And before I left Florida, I had reached out to all of my old managers and asked them to write me letters of recommendation, and came out. And I just, from the first morning that I woke up, I was at the time staying in Manhattan Beach. Great introduction for a 25-year-old to LA.
I lived in Long Beach because when you looked on the map, Long Beach was only like 12 miles from LA, from Hollywood. So I was like, this is perfect.
They don't tell you that 12 miles is an hour.
Yeah, no, they don't. And then, how did photography come into play? Because you've told me that you've always been creative, and your curiosity kind of fuels your creativity. How did photography get involved then?
So photography it's funny. I was always that friend with a camera. My Nana gave me my first camera for my 8th birthday when she took me to Disney World for the first time. And so I was always taking pictures, friends, family. I was the kid at school with the point and shoot. And I didn't know that it could be a job. I thought you had to go to school for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's interesting because I remember once upon a time I was married, and prior to getting married did engagement photos. And I remember having an experience with the photographer who is still a friend of mine. We're very, very good friends. But he was used to photographing models. Not couples. And so the experience was just a little shaky for me. And I remember thinking, like, I would want people to feel like they could just be themselves, not like they have to be this editorial situation.
Model.
Yeah, right? And so I also at the time was connected to another photographer, and both of these people were self-taught. And when I learned that they were self-taught and they were building these businesses, I was like, I want to try this. And so I did. I bought the first camera that I bought was a Canon Rebel, and just photographed anything and everything, friends, that would sit in front of me for headshots, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that I was pretty good at it. And so, thank you. Mm-hmm. And I was also in this corporate environment that did not feel good to me. I was reaching that point where I felt like my soul was dying a little bit. And I just up and quit my job. And to supplement that income, I was walking dogs while figuring out how to build a photography business. Had no freaking clue. And it just kind of worked. It's also amazing what people in LA will pay dog walkers.
Truly.
Yeah. Because I was able to sustain myself for about 6 months while doing like random, Craigslist contract work back when Craigslist was still a thing, and dog walking. And then I ended up getting a couple of contracts to travel, doing event work. And what I did was I went into Facebook groups in every city that I was going to be in. And I would just introduce myself, find people. I would find people to meet up with. I would offer free photo sessions to people in those cities to keep building. And then people started hiring me. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
Went from there. But then you slowly started to see, or maybe it was a smack in the face, I'm assuming, that there was a gap in the photography business, that there was a section of people's lives who weren't being photographed. And I remember you specifically talking to me about how photographing a same-sex couple, 2 men who are engaged, how different that is than a typical straight couple. And I noticed on your website early on how they're in love, but you don't need the typical pose when there are 2 men, you know what I mean?
Well, so this is also a thing where I think it's really important regardless of the relationship and the people in front of you, we really need to break down heteronormative stereotypes and imagery anyway. I had seen something from a wedding photographer not that long ago talking about this and how so often in heterosexual couples, the bride is often very centered in the photography and the groom is treated like an accessory. So for example, like you'll have the bride kind of like facing forward and then the groom, it's like he's like off to the side just as this accessory, you know? And even in that regard, dude's getting married too, you know, make him front and center too. Like if you're going to do certain things with a bride, also counterbalance it to do the same with a groom. So I approach everything with that kind of equitable playing field when I would work with couples anyway.
Yeah. And would they be like, no, I want to be the wife or was it just natural?
Well, that's not even something that comes out. People just have their own identities and their own personalities. And of course, before I would ever, we wouldn't just have a consultation call and then do a shoot. It's like consultation call, tell me what you're looking for. And then even before the shoot, let's have another conversation. I want to get to know you too. You know, who's more outgoing? Who's more silly? What are your personalities like? And just let them interact as they naturally would rather than directing them in this very artificial way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I can picture in my mind right now a Pinterest board with the typical, family shoot with the guy standing in the middle and they're all wearing jeans and a white shirt and she's on the side with the 3 kids in the front. Like I feel like I've seen that photo a million times.
You probably have.
But it's such a patriarchal, like here's the man and they're all white men of a certain age on a field and it really gives you this imagery of like, oh, that's what my family should look like. Well, that's not how families look like. That is how their family looks like. And I know for me, it's not how my family looks like, and I feel like it's almost like your superpower is showing other people their superpower. I don't know if you've ever, because you reflect back your strength is showing me that I also have strength, or the people you surround yourself or your clients or coaches. And that to me is conveyed in your imagery. Yeah. And I think it's really powerful. I don't know if I've ever told you that, but
you haven't. But I receive it. Thank you. Yeah, and even that, like, it carries through because I don't often photograph couples anymore. A lot of the people that I work with now are business owners or thought leaders, and even that, who are you? How can you connect to your most authentic self and bring that confidence and magic forward?
Yeah, and then what would you say, or no, I don't want to ask that. How would you say approaching entrepreneurs and approaching brands and everything and bringing your photography, you were able to bring in this inclusive language? Because language is also a superpower you have. We talked about it. I'll do your algebra homework. You write my papers. If we were in high school, we would be best friends. But you kind of have that photography then kind of informed what was lacking among entrepreneurs and the language they were using on their websites. And how did you kind of like see that or make that leap into that kind of coaching side of working with brands to create inclusive imagery, but also messaging, the whole gamut?
Yeah, well, okay, so I have to give some flowers to Paige on this one because when her and I met, I love Paige. When her and I met, we met through a Tuesdays Together event. And it's funny, we joke about how we both thought the other person was so cool, but we were really nervous to talk with each other. But I remember her telling me, because she had been following my work, and she's like, your wedding work is beautiful. I think you would really thrive in the brand space. And that, I was like, what do you mean? Say more words. And so I actually spent a little bit of time with her and hired her to do a little bit of coaching intensive with me and just get some insight into it. And then my former business brain from having been in the corporate world kind of kicked in, and I thought, oh, there is something here. There is a way to help people connect with themselves and who they are and bring that into their messaging, into their imagery, and do it in a way that is inclusive and thoughtful and genuine. And so I started kind of making that pivot. And I'm trying to remember the first brand shoot that I did was with a legal and tax accountant who also works with creatives.
Okay.
And we did this shoot, built it all out, and it was so much fun. And everything that came out of that, he's like, I don't think I've ever gotten images like this. It has my personality. I can see my brand voice in it, and he was able to use those images for years. And so that's something that is really important to me when I'm working with business owners is we're not just going to, meet and have a planning meeting and do photos. I want to get to know who you are, what's important to you, what do you value, why does it matter, how are you supporting people, what do you want to convey, and how can we bring that into a shoot.
Entrepreneurs, listen up. Are you stuck trying to DIY your website and marketing only to end up frustrated and spinning your wheels? Stacy Beeman of Bee Woman Marketing gets it. She helps passionate business owners like you ditch the overwhelm and go back to your zone of genius. From strategic websites and automated marketing systems to branding, logo design, messaging, and social media strategy, she handles it all. Stacy has supported coaches, consultants, nonprofits, authors, educators, and your girl, Carrie Murray. So, stop Googling how to embed a form or set up an email funnel and start growing your business. Visit bewomanmarketing.com and mention Carrie On, and you get 10% off of a strategy session with Stacy.
Have you ever had a client, maybe a pre-call or pre-planning meeting when you realized your values were so not aligned, but you felt, I gotta go? Or have you always been just kind of attracting the people who need you?
For the most part, I attract people that need me. I've had a few folks who, in the past, they themselves weren't clear. And that is also what ended up helping me really refine my own process, because in those instances, they were people who had never done any sort of leadership coaching, had never really sat with themselves. They just, started a business and they were like, I need photos. I won't take those shoots anymore. Mm-hmm. The way that my business is run now is the only people that are eligible for photography are people that are returning clients or coaching clients.
Gotcha. I love that. And your work then transcends into this now next iteration where you're offering workshops and courses. And that was like a great time when we met. Do you still, remind me, do you still offer the courses with brands and
I do.
How did that then, I know those, tell us a little bit about those and then how they informed this beautiful book.
Well, I kind of fell into it because towards the end of 2019, as I was pivoting into brand photography, people started asking me questions. They were like, your photography is so inclusive. Your business is so inclusive and the representation is so diverse. How did you do it? And these questions were coming from people mostly in the wedding and event space mm-hmm. and the creatives, around the wedding and event space because of social media. And I was a little confused initially because I thought this is just what I do. And then recognizing people do need support. People do worry about saying and doing the wrong thing. So I started offering that support first at the mentorship level, just kind of like 4 to 8 weeks. And then as I was working with more people and the feedback that I was getting, they were like, I could use more of this. It just expanded from there. And then 2020 comes, we're all in lockdown.
Yeah.
We see, the murder of George Floyd. Mm-hmm. We hear about Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and so many other people. And people started asking me what to do and how to respond. And it was really interesting because it was this duality of feeling imposter syndrome because I had never taught groups at that level, let alone had, deeper conversations with people that were super close to me at that time. Mm-hmm. So it was this imposter syndrome, but also it all just poured out of me because of my lived experience growing up being the biracial kid in all white communities. In hindsight, the queer kid didn't really know it.
Right. Oh, not yet.
Also that, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it just, all of this stuff just poured out of me. And I think because I was coming, because most of the people that I was working with at that time were predominantly white women. And I think because of where I was coming from, you know, having a really close relationship with my own mother and understanding the fears of, you know, not wanting to get it wrong and being able to meet people where they are and also have the lived experience of moving through the world in black skin. Just because I'm mixed doesn't mean that when I walk in a room, people say, oh, she's half white. Like, the world sees me as a black woman, and I live my life as a black woman. So being able to meet people at that space and say, okay, this is the experience, and you know, the fragility, the uncertainty of someone like your experience, or, you know, any other white person who has never had deeper conversations around identity in that way. It really sat with people. And I don't know, I guess I will also say, like, the truth is I'm white palatable, and I know that. And that is a very weird form of privilege to have, and that's part of why I do what I do, because I know that people will listen to me because I'm palatable.
And during that time in 2020, at the height of Black Lives Matters, what was it like to communicate with your family? Were they just as outraged, or were they, what language were they using to kind of explain? And it's Florida, so that's Trayvon Martin. You know, he was in Florida when that happened. So, we don't have to, we can cut this, but Carrie Murray is actually genuinely curious how you managed that time.
It was hard.
Yeah.
That was a time period where I learned that my mom had never thought that I would have a different experience in the world because of the color of my skin.
Oh.
And I remember when she told me that, I was dumbfounded, because I'm like, what do you mean? How do you have 3 kids, how do you not notice the black one is having a different experience?
Yeah.
But even that conversation, it came a while after, because I had to take space. Like the hardest piece, and I'm comfortable sharing this because I've done a whole talk on it that's on YouTube.
We'll link it.
But I remember when George Floyd was murdered, and just the weight, the gravity of it, on top of everything else that was already happening, on top of having witnessed so many other atrocities against my community. And that one, I had this feeling of just, I was in my apartment, I was quarantined alone, and I had already had a rough year, and I just had this feeling of just, it was like the little girl inside of me that just wanted her mom.
Yeah.
And I called her. It was early here in LA, and so mid-morning on the East Coast. And she picked up the phone, and she was like, hi. I'm like, hey. She's like, how are you? And I was like, have you seen the news? I'm not great. And she was just like, yeah, I've seen the news, and Crystal, I don't even know what to say. And I started to tear up a little bit, and I was like, well, Mom, you could start with Black Lives Matter. And she snapped at me. She was just like, Crystal, if you called to start an argument, I don't have time for this. And I just started bawling. And I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to let you go. This is not what I thought I needed. And I ended up sending her a message. I don't know if it was that day or a couple days later, but just saying, hey, look, you're going through a lot. I'm going through a lot, because I was also freshly divorced. And I was just like, I recognize that you cannot be or provide the support that I need right now, and I can't hold space for whatever it is you're going through.
Yeah.
I love you. I'm not mad at you, but I'm just really hurt and disappointed. So I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk. And we didn't talk for 2 or 3 months. She would text me, I would respond, because I'm not an asshole.
Right. I'm alive.
Yeah. But then that kind of coming to Jesus, if you will, I was awake with insomnia. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and she had texted me and just told me that she was having a really hard time. She missed me, and I ended up texting her back, and we ended up talking until 5 in the morning. And that was when I learned that she didn't realize that I would have a different experience. And it was just kind of, it began this conversation that we still have even today. She she said something recently where she's like, I want to talk to I'm not going to call anybody out. She's like, I want to talk to so-and-so, a family member, about their cis-het white male privilege. And I was like, yes, you do that. Let me know how it goes.
Oh, Mom.
Yeah. But then I also have other family members who we used to be really, really close, and they don't talk to me because you hear about like the white liberals.
Yeah.
Who, are all gung-ho. They want to call people out and say Black Lives Matter and all of the stuff, right? But then the second somebody brings something to their attention, they're like, oh, no, not me. I had that experience too.
Yeah.
So,
or they vote for Trump.
Also that.
Yeah. All these white women are like at these Black Lives Matters rally, supporting all the things. And then when they go vote, when it matters, more white women voted for Trump. Then it's disgusting. It's extremely frustrating. Okay.
We went off on a tangent.
We did. But let's bring it back to the book. Okay.
Yeah.
So did that experience working through your mom and your clients and now Black Lives Matters and all of that, let's bring it back to the book.
Yeah.
How did that experience help inform what you witnessed and what needed to be conveyed about what brave leadership is? And most importantly about this title, the word choice that you use. It is a choice.
It is absolutely a choice. Yeah. It's funny. A lot of my content used to be subconsciously written to my mother. So there's that piece. But when I was writing the book, I remember I was working with someone at the time because I'm very methodical in a chaotic way.
Are you a Pisces?
No, I'm an Aries.
Ah, that actually makes more sense. Sorry.
Yeah. Aries sun, Aries rising, and Leo moon. So I'm just here to set things on fire,
A lot of fire.
But I remember thinking like I needed to write in order. And then somebody was like, Paige, at first she was like, you don't need to write in order. Just write what comes out and then you can organize it. Oh, that makes sense. And then somebody else was like, you're a really good teacher. Stop trying to write the book and write master classes. And so that's actually what I did. I wrote a series of master classes, taught them, and took notes on what resonated and what didn't. And that really informed the book.
What surprised you?
What surprised me was how little people knew. And how things that when this is a part of your everyday life, identity, work, or otherwise, things to me that seemed very basic, like it's still new information for a lot of people. Even now, this book was published in 2023, and even now I will share things and people are like, oh, I never really thought about it from that perspective. And so that's also where I am consciously being considerate of that reality, and I'm really careful to make sure that I'm not being judgmental, and just coming from this place of compassion and understanding, because here's the reality as well. Think about how our country and our cities are set up. There's still so many segregated areas.
Oh, yeah.
We don't say segregation, but you have predominantly white neighborhoods. You have predominantly Black neighborhoods. If you think about, the systems and the way that society is run.
Or even how they were built.
Way
back in the day.
Yeah. Absolutely. So when I'm working with a person who identifies as a cisgender, heterosexual white woman, from middle America, where they probably went to school with 2 Black kids. They might have went to school with 1 gay kid. There's not a lot of exposure. Yes, we have the internet and all of those things, but then when we think about capitalism and white supremacy culture and how it keeps us busy and it's hard. Distracted. So people aren't, often thinking, oh, I should go and learn about white supremacy. I should go learn how to be more inclusive, because they're too busy trying to feed their families. I'm not saying that's an excuse not to learn, but I understand the things that keep people from getting that information. And so I meet them where they are.
And speaking of white supremacy, I'd love for you to share. We are in a state of DEI being dismantled, and it's been actually happening prior to this election. It's been slowly dripped out over time, kind of quietly. And then once Trump became president, he was like, you know what, we out. So we're not funding, we're not, and is there anything you can speak to about that, but anything that the book speaks to that you'd like to share with the class?
Yeah, I could read from the book.
I would love
The
that.
first thing that comes to mind is all of the microcosms, because so often we're paying attention to the overt stuff, right?
But the loud noise.
loud stuff. But the loud stuff, the overt things exist because of the micro. So I'll read this so that it's
Thank you.
concise for folks. Yeah. Okay. I've had a front row seat to the things that are often overlooked because they're the microcosms that rest within the bedrock of white supremacy. Most people aren't paying attention to them because they're focused on the bigger issues. Yet the reality is the many microcosms that make up the bedrock are what supports the whole violence system. And the violence within the microcosms isn't what you might normally perceive as violence because it's all done with a smile. And as long as you behave according to the expectations set forth for the comfort of whiteness, you can continue to have the privilege of being recognized, included, and supported. But the moment an issue is raised that threatens the comfort of whiteness, your experience can be erased in a single conversation, and that is violent.
Wow, it's so very true. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, that passage was actually inspired by some familial interactions.
Wow. What's something that me and any of the white people watching who don't believe that they're a white supremacist, but they're actually contributing to it by doing subtle little things, what's something that they can do if they call themselves a leader?
Do your shadow work. Dig into, really sit with yourself. Who are you? What do you believe? Why do you believe those things? Why do you behave the way you do? Why do you spend your time where you do? Really digging into biases. And I'm not even just talking about bias in relation to the obvious stuff in terms of identity, right? Because just because a person has white skin and doesn't have a lot of, it doesn't mean that they're automatically racist, but it does mean that they are probably doing things unknowingly.
Well, they're benefiting from being white.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
But they are probably unaware of certain things that are offensive just because they haven't really taken the time to dig into, the lived experiences of other people, what biases they themselves hold. For example, if you're walking down the street and you cross the street when somebody who looks differently than you do is walking towards you, why do you do that?
Why do you clutch your purse?
Yeah. Why do you have assumptions about immigrants,
Which we're seeing a lot right now. And it's really, I'm not going to cry.
I might.
Yeah. Especially that little boy.
I saw that this morning. I saw that this morning.
Yeah.
And just rage. It's all I can feel. Just rage.
Yeah. Because we have a lack of leadership. And I don't know what the solution is. I don't know, what can we do?
You need to be building community. You need to be, if you don't know your neighbors, get to know your neighbors. Have support systems in place. Don't rely on the state. Don't rely on, these big systems.
Yeah.
We really need to be building community, and not from this place of, what can you do for me, but really what can we do together?
Yeah. And how would you recommend somebody who's kind of struggling with I want to be a brave leader. I want to have this, other than to buy the book, and take a course and join the
Buy the
community.
book, hire me for coaching.
Yeah, exactly. Join your circle, your round table, have the uncomfortable conversations, I guess is a good way to start. Where would you say, someone who's grappling with this but is trying to be in a leadership role, where would they begin?
You need to get really comfortable being uncomfortable. And when I say get comfortable being uncomfortable, that's not to say that you'll ever feel complete ease when discomfort arises, but just get familiar with it. Understand what feelings come up in your body when discomfort arises. Is it fear? Is it anxiety? Are you panicking? Get really acquainted with how you react and respond to things, first and foremost, you need to be clear on who you are and how you feel, how you show up. And then think about how you can use any level of privilege that you have to advocate for others. If you don't want to protest, you don't have to protest, but what skills do you have? You know, maybe you can be supporting organizers of protests. Maybe you can be supporting your neighbor. Maybe you have neighbors that are, undocumented. They still pay taxes.
They're still working.
They're still working. And, maybe they're worried about going out often in public. Do they need help with grocery trips? Think about how you can show up in a way that is in alignment with what you value and something that you can do sustainably. Because that's the other issue that I recognize is people think, oh, I want to dive in and do all the things, and then they burn out and they quit.
Yeah.
And it's not helpful.
Yeah. I also think you're not done.
You're never done.
We're not done.
You're never done. I'm not done. There are things that I am still learning.
Yeah.
So.
What do you want what's next for you?
What is next for me?
Yeah. Book tour, world domination.
I don't want to dominate anything.
That's exhausting.
It is.
You do enough.
Right now, what is taking a lot of my attention is a project that I'm working on for the LA County Department of Mental Health that I've partnered with. It's the TGX Economic Empowerment Project. And what we are doing, I've brought together a group of other fantastic business owners and coaches and advisors, and we are supporting a group of 10 trans, non-binary, and gender expansive business owners to help them with their leadership development, their brand development. So they're going to go through a 3-month program. They're going to get support with all of their messaging foundations. They're going to get your basic business, bookkeeping, tax, legal support, DIY website design. They'll get photo, video. They're getting a lot.
Wow.
Networking, pitching support, messaging, all of that. And
do you have a funding person?
A funding person.
Someone who can help with funding? Like if they're wanting venture capital, I might know somebody.
So this project, this iteration is specifically for this population, and it's being funded by LA County Department of Mental Health.
Gotcha.
But I would love to do variations of this for, say, like BIPOC folks or the broader LGBTQ plus community, because it is a passion project that has been in my heart for years, and I just hadn't figured out how I could pay for it.
Right.
So yeah, it's I would like to do other iterations. If anybody is interested, I'm open to funding.
Yeah, and creating a pilot program. I mean, this could be something that can be used all over the place, not just in LA County. This is incredible. Wow.
Yeah. And what's great is that the participants, because it's being funded, they don't have to pay anything out of pocket, and they're getting stipends for participation.
Wow, this is incredible. Okay, but applications are closed right now.
Applications are closed now, yes.
But follow along on this journey. And this is a pilot program, or have they done this before?
So I created this program.
Amazing.
This is the first time it's running.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're continuing to teach. See? So that's incredible. Any final thoughts you want to share? Something you want to drive home to our audience about all the things that we talked about a lot. I mean, or maybe just a piece of advice of someone walking into a room and is like, well, I'm the leader. Are you?
I would say use your voice. Really, use your voice.
Yeah.
And, because I know one of the things that you were curious, like when people have choices, like brave leadership is a choice, and your power is in your voice. So start there.
And listen more, maybe.
Also, yes.
Listen, a great leader is a good listener.
And the other thing, too, that I do want to touch on, I think is really important is be careful not to co-opt movements.
Tell me more.
So if we think about movements where, women's suffrage is probably one of the most common ones that was actually started by a woman of color.
Yes,
and then co-opted
and
by
they
white
made them
women.
stand in the back of the line.
They did. Yeah.
Even though it was their idea.
Yeah. So it's like, yes, go for the cause, but don't co-opt movements. I'm so tired of this idea that only one group can get theirs at a time. That's bullshit.
It is. Total bullshit. Wow. Thank you, Crystal. We could keep talking forever.
We could.
We might have to do a part 2. I saw Bernadette's arm and I was like, oh crap. Did you see it?
I didn't. I'm just paying attention to you.
Okay, good. But I was like, I know we went over, but we might need to do a 2-parter. I don't know, but thank you so much. I adore you, your friendship, your expertise, and you taking the time out of your day to come and be a guest on my show. This has been a passion project of mine, and you've always been on my mind to be a guest. So I really appreciate you spending the time.
Thank you,
Thank
Carrie.
you so much. Tell everyone where we can find you, all the places, all the things.
Yeah, I would say the easiest is just to go to my website, crystallily.co, and that's crystallily.co. And then all of my links are there. You can sign up for the Brave Leadership Roundtable, which is a free, almost monthly community container where we have conversations around how you can
Show up
bravely.
Live bravely as a leader. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this very special and emotional episode. We cry here at Carrie On. But please like, comment, and subscribe. Follow Crystal. Head to one of her roundtables. I just might see you there. And as always, keep your head above all this fucking chaos and carry on.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Carrie On. Be sure to find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And as always, like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. And don't forget to keep your head above the chaos and carry on.